Just speaking on the James Harden update in regards to possibly being traded to the Clippers, I basically just want to tell you this. I think it's really truly come to an end now because now that, Daryl Morey on the 76ers, the GM, basically has said that, him and the 76ers are not pleased basically with what the Clippers are trying to offer for James Harden. Now, you can read these comments pretty much anywhere, Clutch Sports, anyone on Sports Illustrated, it's all over. But regardless, he's not, the 76ers are not happy with what the Clippers are trying to offer because we all know that James Harden, if you don't know, James Harden wanted to request trade to LA, to the Clippers. And right now it looks like James Harden won't be making his way to LA due to the fact of, Daryl Morey and the Sixers. And, now you're hearing reports about, James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar and not trying to push for the trade. He was basically half-assing the whole time, not really trying to push for the trade the way he could or should have in regards to James Harden. But now, to me, that makes the situation so much more confusing and more interesting in this regard, because if they keep him on the Sixers, now you got a player on there who's disgruntled, and now you got a player in James Harden who's on the Sixers who think that the whole time you was just undercutting him. The plan the whole time was to keep him on the 76ers, never to trade him, because you don't have to trade anybody you don't want to. You're in control of the contracts and how they're negotiated and how they're dispensed, because you're the general manager, and, the front office of the team definitely makes those type of decisions. And I understand James Harden's frustration, but at the same time, things don't always work out the way you want it to. But at the same time, it might have all worked out for the best, because I don't know if him with the Clippers would have been the best fit in the world, because first of all, you really can't count on James Harden to knock down shots the way he used to. I mean, play the way he used to, like he did on Houston, because he's not that type of player, or at least he doesn't look like that type of player. You know what I'm saying? Because he looks a little out of shape to me still. He doesn't look the size he used to in Houston. He looks a little bigger, out of shape, not really like, how he was, you know what I'm saying? So when you think about it from that standpoint, yeah, James Harden is still a good player, but he doesn't remind us of the great player that he once was with Houston on a consistent nightly basis. And to me, if you don't have that James Harden, if you got the one that chokes, if you got the one that doesn't show up in big games a lot of times in the playoffs, if you got the James Harden that shows up here and there a game or two in the playoffs, or maybe not, showing up the way he should, then it doesn't really matter. The Clippers would probably lose anyway with him on the floor, because they would be expecting a lot from James Harden just because of who he is and his household name and the superstar status that he still holds. So if you're expecting a lot out of James Harden, it might have all worked out for the best for the Clippers by not getting him, or this proposal trade falling backwards, because, like I said, he could have been more of a distraction to the Clippers than actually a help. I mean, because you think about it, it would have been James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi, and PG. Like, that's a locker room full of alpha males. That's a starting lineup full of dominant egos. And, in order for big threes, big fours, big whatever, in order for them to work, the chemistry has to be there, and everybody has to understand their role, and everybody has to, play it to a high level. But there also has to be a sacrifice amongst the two or three superstars or star players, on that team, of who takes the last shot and who does this and does that. So, I mean, really, when you think about that in its entirety, James Harden really could have been more of a problem for the Clippers rather than what people think. Because think about it, in Brooklyn it didn't work out. Now in Philadelphia it's not working out. He was a diva and fought his way and gained weight, to get out of Houston. And I mean, it's just so much, stuff that hovers around, James Harden, and the fact that he doesn't, have that dog in him mentality of playing. Like, he doesn't play like a Russell Westbrook. See, Russ is not the player he once was, but the reason why he still gets a lot of credit is because of his gameplay and how, in regards to how hard he plays every night. He's not going to cheat you. He's not going to miss any games. He's going to be there every night. He's going to understand the plan and go along with it, and he's going to give you everything he has left in his body until there's nothing else left. And players like that get respect more than players like James Harden, who is overly talented, but at the same time uses his talent as an excuse for him, not coming through the way he should, or use his talent to his advantage just to get, his way in a situation, whether it's contract or contractual situations, or whether it's just, his way on the floor. But now, at this point, James Harden's game is more about talking than it is production because, like I said, he's not the MVP he once was. He's not playing at that type level. He's not scoring the way he once was. So even still, Clippers fans got to look at it like this. Adding James Harden might not have hurt the Clippers because that's an extra scorer, whenever he decides to score and play his hardest. And, it definitely makes them more of a threat having, a big four rather than a big three if they can stay healthy and keep that with what they currently have. So, it definitely would have added to their team, but I don't know if it would have moved the needle like a lot of people might have think it would because, like I said, James Harden chokes in big games. He's been known for that, and he doesn't show up in the playoffs the way he should. He shows up in the playoffs, at times. He'll give you 1 or 2 or 3 good games out of a 7-game series, but he's not really a consistent, superstar in regards to, giving it to you in the playoffs the way a lot of people feel like he should have with his great scoring ability that he once had. Because it's like with his scoring ability, he should be more, lethal in the playoffs, but he hasn't been. So that's my point. It doesn't necessarily mean because he went to the Clippers, all good, everything's going to go well and it's just a championship and it's over with. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It means, that he would have been on there, but there's no guarantees, of course. But in this situation here, like I said, it looks like he's going to stay right on the 76ers because I think he might be right about this situation. James Harden, I'm talking about, because he thinks that they basically undercut him and didn't really try to make the trade happen as much as they say they did. And he might be right about that because a lot of people got to realize when it comes to organizations, they make the decisions in contractual situations. They make the decision in regards to whether you're traded or not. Not you. You're the player. You're out there, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears on the floor. They sit there and negotiate and do everything with the contract. So it's up to them to make that decision. If they don't want to trade you, they don't necessarily have to. You know what I'm saying? And especially trade you to a destination you want to go to. We all saw a few years ago with Kawhi Leonard when he was on the Spurs. He was talking about getting traded to the Lakers back then, and they traded him all the way to Toronto. You see what I'm talking about? So it's like teams don't ever really want to give you what you want. They'll give you a trade, but they're not going to trade you to the destination you want to go 9 times out of 10 because they don't want to make their competition better than them. So they're going to make it hard for the competition to acquire you, in which they probably did for the Clippers. Asked for the house basically from the Clippers. They probably asked for every piece on the Clippers bench that's worth a damn. And, I personally think that's just too much to give up for James Harden, who's damn near washed to me and not the player he once was on Houston. So, really, it might all work out for the good for both sides because the Clippers might not give up too much for a player who's really not who he once was. And the 76ers might end up keeping a player in James Harden who maybe they can add to their roster, through a trade and make the 76ers a better team going into next season where they can possibly compete for a championship. So, really, it might be a win-win this way, even though it might not seem like it. But, looks like this might be the way it's going to go because both sides definitely couldn't come to an agreement. And, according to some, there wasn't really, much talks out there anyway because, like I said, I'm pretty sure the 76ers were asking for, I know they were asking for Terrence Mann and, a few others on the bench, like along with Norman Powell and maybe a couple other picks. But that's just too much for James Harden, especially a guy who is a disruption in the locker room of what we saw in Brooklyn, along with Kyrie. And on top of that, a guy who talks a lot now and whose game isn't as good as it once was in Houston. And he's never won a championship or came nowhere near close, seemed like to me. So, it's a lot for a guy who really isn't, and who isn't really probably worth that much to a lot of teams anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it might have worked out good for both sides, but I definitely think the situation is more to an end now because, like I said, I just think the Sixers, based upon the reports and everything, the Sixers are going to keep James Harden where he is and just kind of go with that and, see where it takes them. But hey, leave any comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it.